Hey, this is Lee Nevis, host of CJ and Cell. Thanks for listening to the following podcast on Public House Media.
Welcome to Duties and Headcanons, where we're nerdy, and you probably are too. I'm Lindsay, and I'm here today with Elizabeth, and we are here as ever to talk nerdy to you. This week, we wanted to talk about Disney Plus, and I know everyone's talking about it. We've got Mandalorian that's out, and for those of you that listened to our nostalgia episode, you go back, listen to that one again. And I mean, we could just talk about that again for this whole episode, but instead we're going to really delve into, the good things, the bad things, the things that we're excited about, the things we're not excited about. And I've actually got a couple of criticisms, believe it or not.
Ooh.
First, Elizabeth is going to have Gaming Corner.
Yes, so now we get criticisms about Bethesda because why not? Why not start off this way? So, as you saw from my post earlier this week, there has been yet more drama going on with Fallout 76, and I know it's like, really? How can there still be more going on?
Right.
But there is. Okay, so there's been a few different things that's gone on. First of all, last year there was a period of time that ZeniMax, the parent company of Bethesda, was not honoring refunds for Fallout 76 from Australian consumers. And they were investigated, and they were brought to court in Australia, and the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission won the case, and they said that ZeniMax does have to honor these refunds that were requested between certain dates. So if you are an Australian consumer who requested a refund between certain dates, make sure you check those dates, because if you did, ZeniMax does owe you a refund. Make sure you get your money back if that's what you want. So that's one thing, and that is a pretty big blow for ZeniMax. You know, obviously, over here in the US, there aren't quite as many consumer protections. It's not as strict as it is over there in Australia. But, kudos to our Australian brothers down there. They're keeping it tight for our consumers. Second of all, to kind of, I guess, celebrate Fallout 76 being launched for a year, they have decided to go ahead and release this subscription service called Fallout First. And Fallout First was supposed to be this little, basically extra thing that you could do. It would give you extra caps. You could get a private server. You could get the special storage box, so you could, put your stuff in there so you didn't get, over encumbered, and then you could just access it at any table and, just use the stuff from there. And I think there were a couple of other little perks that went along with it. Now, I'm personally not strictly against subscription services for MMOs if it's not a situation where it's like, you pay the subscription and you're obviously given a huge edge over players who don't pay the subscription. It's basically just kind of a little boost to have fun with, But number one, considering all the problems Fallout 76 has had, and the problems that they continue to have, I don't really think they should have been thinking about subscription services. I think they should have really been thinking about fixing the game first, Mm-hmm. But whatever. So they launched Fallout First, and I know some players who have gotten the service. Some of them are happy. Some of them are not so happy. The private servers are not really private, as it turns out. There's issues with, friends being able to get on your private server. I'm not sure if they've patched that out yet. And I know that there's been issues with, spawning things in the private servers that indicate that it's really not so private, and that I guess it's a broken progress, which shouldn't you have figured this out before launch? I don't know, Bethesda. What are you doing, even? And the wonderful storage that is supposed to help you, not become over encumbered, that you can, access your things from any craft table. Oh, it's suddenly deleting your items. Yeah, they're gone. Bye-bye. Oh. So yeah, not so good, especially when like the subscription service is costing around $100 a year. So yeah, you just paid up $100 a year and your stuff got deleted and your private server isn't private. Isn't that lovely?
And it's all the stuff that you had really to keep, like
yeah. Like all your crafting materials, if any, like anything special you put in there, it's gone. Now, at first, Bethesda denied this was even actually happening, which is just incredible to me. And eventually they came out and said, oh yeah, it is really actually happening. We're investigating. Hopefully they'll be able to give people back their stuff. I hope.
Right.
I mean, if I'm paying you $100, you better be able to. So yeah, there's that whole controversy. And lately, there has been, just this past week or so, there's this very, influential player who has been playing Fallout 76 and who has been really working with the community to generate, this, real-time map, so that people can use to go and mine resources so that they can, make things and do things, and it just makes it a little easier. And he's spent countless hours pouring himself into this map called Map 76. And he doesn't just do that. He also looks for bugs and tests them and reports them. And he has a whole team of people that, they go around, testing bugs and reporting them, and, not only reporting them, but also investigating them so that, it can be a little bit easier for Bethesda to fix them instead of, getting a report of a bug or even an exploit and be like, oh, okay, well, what's going on here? They can actually these players have actually been going in there and testing them extensively to figure out what exactly is wrong, so that they're not only reporting a problem, but they're also giving the solution to the issue. And unfortunately, for all their trouble, him and a couple of his friends have gotten banned because they said they're violating their terms of service regarding exploits. Now, obviously, testing using exploits is not a good thing, but they're literally testing them so that they can be reported. And the community managers at Bethesda know this. They actually have a good relationship with them, but it's the Bethesda support, that is just not understanding the level of this relationship. And they, are just absolutely refusing to, really listen to the case, listen to what's going on. Right now, Map 76 is offline. It's offline indefinitely because, obviously he can't get on and, adjust the map and everything. So, yeah, that's the whole kind of issue that's going on. And obviously it's a lot more complicated and nuanced, and he kind of goes into detail on that on his website. But, the basic gist of it is, he and his team has followed proper procedures. They have a good relationship with the Bethesda community support, but it's the Bethesda general support that is just not even wanting to give them the time of day. And at the same time, there are hackers in the lovely Nuclear Winter add-on, which is like a free-for-all, like a Fortnite kind of thing, I guess, that they've set up. And yeah, the hackers are making it absolutely insane for the people who are just playing it regularly. And those guys, they're just getting 3-day bans or temporary suspensions. They aren't getting banned indefinitely like this guy, this guy who is actively contributing to the community. It just blows my mind that Bethesda is continually dropping this ball. Obviously there are people who enjoy this game despite its flaws, and that's great. And the best thing I think that I've seen come out of Fallout 76 is the community itself. That a community that, for the most part, has banded together to help each other make the game better, which seems insane. But, now, Bethesda is reaching in and actually affecting the community that has been set up. So, Bethesda, come on. Let's lighten up here. Let's take a step back, take a deep breath, and let's actually examine the situation before we just react here. Because, the one good thing you have going for this game is the community, and if you mess up the community, your game is gone for good. You know, you're not going to get anything more for it.
All right. So, Disney Plus came out a week and a half ago or so. November 12th was the major launch date. And I'll admit, I really tried. I tried to go a couple days. I tried. I tried to go a few days without getting on the streaming service, and I lasted until probably November 14th. There's a couple of packages out there where there's one you can get Hulu and ESPN for what, $12.99, something like that. There are people who were able to pay for the service for the long term, $140 to get it for like 2 or 3 years.
Ooh, that's an investment.
If they paid like back in the summer or something. A friend of mine at work did that.
That's
and
crazy.
Then if you just download the app right now, the first thing is do a 1-month trial, which, you know, I'll be honest, I think it's not really a service that you need to sell. Like, people who have been anticipating this for a while were ready for it when it happened. Like, I know quite a few people who were ready to go the minute it started. I think, like, my biggest criticisms have to do with I can't stream it on my smart TV. I have a Vizio. I bought it maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago from Walmart. And right away, within the first couple of days, I was Googling how to get it how to get it on my phone, because it would make sense for Aurelia and I to be able to watch Disney Plus together at my house, from my phone to my television. And instead, now we've got 2 separate profiles on both of our phones so that we can watch them on our phones, because my television is the models that doesn't have the ability to download the application to be able to play Disney Plus.
Oh, that sucks.
I guess you can Chromecast it or something, but I'm not terribly technically savvy, so maybe I'll get there. I'm not sure. But as far as it is right now, I've got 2 phones that both have the app. It's okay. The only other criticism I have about Disney Plus is that when I've been watching movies, I tend to turn the app off quite a bit, because I will look at messages or see an email or see a phone call or whatever, and I'll start looking into that, and then I'll open up the app again, and if it's been too long, it doesn't save my progress, and there's no continue watching ability. Now, if I'm wrong and someone would like to let me know how I'm supposed to continue watching, maybe it's something in my profile I need to fix, by all means, please let me know, because this is the one thing that I'm like, what am I supposed to do? First, I'd have to know exactly what episode I'm on of whatever show I was watching to be able to go back and continue, because once you get back into the movie, it starts where you stopped. So I've started and stopped Thor a couple times. I've stopped Iron Man a couple times, and I've been back into the movie, and it will start where I turned the app off, but I have to go find the movie. There's no place like Netflix where it's, continue streaming or continue watching. There's no option to continue watching it. I have to go find it first. And that's difficult because my algorithm right now doesn't even reflect what shows I like.
Yeah, it's too early.
Because it's too early. It has no idea what I am or what I'm interested in. Which is why it's so funny that there's a you'd be interested in section, because get out of here. Who do you think I am? You don't even know what I watch, let alone what I've been watching. Come on. So that, I think, is most important to me. And to be fair, I didn't create either of these profiles. A friend of mine did. So it's possible that they put in that I am a 34-year-old female who likes, I don't even know what they would have said I like. But I know, my daughter's profile doesn't even have adult locks on it because she's 12. I mean, what's Disney going to do to her that they haven't already done?
Really.
Let's be serious. So that's really like my two biggest. Have you heard anything that anybody's going to say about it?
I haven't heard anything necessarily negative about it, but
Okay.
because like a lot of my friends have basically like just been watching like different little things here and there, but I'm not sure if they've like really taken the time to like look at any cons, or like I don't think they might have had the same issues you have, because they might have like the smart TVs that are like compatible, or they might not have, you know, the issue with like, you know, going off the app for a little too long and then having to like, you know, restart, like refind the stuff.
My very special criticism.
Yes. Well, no, I don't think they're like super special. I mean, like, you know, I think they're valid concerns. You know, you should have like some sort of like history to go to in order to, you know, find what you were watching, or, you know, something. And I mean, really, I mean, a Vizio, as far as I know, isn't like super low grade, like super generic TV. Like, you know, why wouldn't you launch with a little bit more variety? I don't know. That seems odd to me, but you know, I'm also not a super tech person. Or something. So. Oh, hopefully that will.
So,
hopefully they'll add more then in the future.
Right. Well, there can be updates and things too. There have been a couple of bumps and hiccups. I've heard that originally people were having trouble logging in, that there was some issues with the availability of the streaming service just because they weren't accepting so many people. But I mean, come on, Disney.
I mean, come on. You saw what America did with a chicken sandwich.
Yes.
With the chicken sandwich from Popeyes. I mean, come on now.
Yes.
You really didn't think that Disney Plus wasn't going to get absolutely flooded? Come on, y'all.
Okay, so a couple other things. I also wanted to mention how funny it is that like all of these streaming services are coming out. Hollywood has sort of always had like a timeline of big events that happened, like when movies that had talking voices came out, that was a big influential thing. They had music videos come out. That was a big influential. Cable television and how paramount that was. And now we've got all these streaming services coming out at the same time. I'm almost feeling like kind of overwhelmed with the concept of how many shows I want to watch, how many different streaming services they are on, and almost even like picking them. I find like even in my personal life where I've got several different gym options and class options, I'm stuck between like, okay, do I go get this new service that I really wanted to try, that I really want to see this show on, or do I, try this new gym? Do I try those new classes? And then you've got to use up the classes you've already spent your money on as well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure the analogy like actually works or not, but I feel like it's a very normal thing for our like adulting lifestyles now. Like you have all these different options and all these different things you want to try, but if you don't coordinate them for the free trials and all of that, there's potential to like spend a ton of money on streaming services you don't have the time to watch. Like, if you've got a full-time job and a family to raise and, people you love and want to spend time with, all you really Saturday and Sunday if you want to watch television. And even then, you still want to live. Like, you still want to go out and do stuff. Yeah. So how do you decide which streaming service and for how long? Like, I even feel like, that one free trial is fantastic for whichever streaming service you use, but then you've got to cut it at that month. Otherwise,
you're going to get charged.
None of us remember.
Yeah.
None of us are going to remember to cut the membership.
No.
We're going to end up
that's what they're counting
next
on.
Month.
Yep, that's what they're counting on.
Yep.
And I think the thing is with all of these different streaming services, it was, a big deal back in the day when it was just like, pretty much just like Netflix and Hulu. And, you know, it was the whole big thing, you know, oh, just cut the cord and stuff like that with, you know, cutting off cable, which, I mean, I haven't had cable TV in years, literally years. And
Right.
I don't miss it at all. And, you know, but with, like, all the different ones that have come out, I saw a listing of, like, basically, I think they covered almost all the streaming services that are out there and available. And if you got every single one, it would come out to around $100. And it's like, so we're cutting the cord, and yet now we're paying for all these different separate streaming services, and it's coming out to be about as expensive as, you know, getting cable or satellite TV.
Exactly. Well, it's funny too, because I had watched Seth Meyers little bit about streaming videos and what's better, like a kid going outside and experiencing ridiculous things like shooting a basket across a court and getting a swish, or watching your favorite television show on repeat on the Disney Plus streaming service. And, you know, of course, he like described each of those childhood accomplishments as like this amazing, fantastic thing, and how they are, you know, more important for the development of a child than watching a streaming show. And I think that's really important to like even kind of address, because there are so many parents, people, adults, children, everybody out there, where we rely on our phones to entertain us, to have that kind of service at our fingertips. And now there's just so many options and so many choices. It's rare that you are ever actually bored or not watching, listening, reading something. Between podcasts and videos and streaming services, there's all sorts of options. And I almost feel like the overload is gonna catch up with us somehow, whether we're gonna be raising monsters who need television at all times. And I've noticed it with Aurelia, where she'll not have her phone and she'll say she's bored, and I'll be like, look out the window. Like, do you know what I mean? And I feel like that's a thing. Like, that's very real, looming fear that I have, that back in high school, and this was, you know, a long time ago, 15 to 16 years ago, we read a book called Entertaining Ourselves to Death. And it was a very specific educational essays about different kinds of events, how they've progressed through the years, and what they're doing to us as far as entertainment, and how that computes into our daily lives and our psychology. And I could talk forever about it if I were to reread the book and find my notes, to be honest. But I just think that's a really scary thing to even think about, that these streaming services now just sort of give us this extra thing at our fingertips to distract us from our lives.
Yeah. And I mean,
it dark, but that's where I'm going with it.
And I mean, like, obviously, like, every situation is going to be a little bit different.
Of course.
You know, depending on different people. Because, I mean, my son, even at like 3.5, he watches a ton of YouTube. He watches a lot of like gamers, like, you know, because he likes watching like Mario and like some of the Batman games and stuff like that. And his speech therapist actually said that can actually be a good thing for him, because he is speech delayed, and watching more videos means he's taking in more language. It means he also like will try to imitate some of those sounds. So it can end up being a good thing. But I mean, I get what you're saying. Like, you know, as a whole, like we're so overexposed to entertainment in general. We start looking for entertainment in different ways, and we start accepting less and less as entertainment just because it's different. But different isn't always necessarily better.
Right. Well, and I definitely would never, I don't mean to broadly, you know, detail everyone. There's always going to be special cases, and everyone will be different as to what they use the streaming services for. And especially when it comes to children with differently abled children, there's always going to be something else going on. And that's nobody's business but the mom and dad's and the child's. Like, we should never, ever judge what else is going on with someone else's children. But I do also, like, broadly feel that it would be scary for us to rely on that completely as a society. Does that make sense?
Oh no, I think it's more like a self-introspection. Case in point, we lost our internet for about a week or so when our modem broke.
Okay.
This past week, as you well know, Lindsay. So thank you for keeping up with the post for me, because that was not going to happen without internet. But it was kind of interesting, to go without internet, without any kind of connection to the outside world, outside of being able to catch a stray Wi-Fi signal at the library. And it really kind of puts into perspective your different entertainment options. I actually spent a lot of time writing. I spent some time gaming. I did some different stuff with Jason. I actually bought a little like $5 slime kit to make a little homemade slime with.
Slime?
Yes. And he loved it so much. It was really great for his sensory stuff. And
sure.
We just kind of took advantage of the time that we had, because, while it is great to kind of disconnect for a little while, after a while, especially with a special needs kid, it kind of gets to the point where it's like, okay, I really need this, because I really need to just veg out for a minute, and I need to let him veg out for a minute. So, but it did kind of, make me evaluate some of the choices that I was making in entertainment. Like, okay, well, what am I watching now, and why am I watching it? Why am I listening to this? Could I be doing this instead? Something a little bit more intellectually stimulating. Not that I think that every single piece of media you consume has to be intellectually stimulating, because I think there is definitely room for, something to just veg on, but it's just finding a good balance between that.
And I was that too. I was going to say, like, first of all, how cool that he's making slime and loved it. And second of all, not everything has to be intellectually and educationally stimulating. Like, it's just not necessary for all entertainment to be that way. Even so, I also feel like having Disney Plus at my fingertips is giving me the options to really go back and watch movies that I haven't watched in a long time, or that I never did watch. Even being like an avid MCU fan, I truly don't believe I ever saw Iron Man 2 or 3. And didn't even realize that Avengers was in between Thor and Thor Dark World. So the ability to have all of those available and be able to watch them and even listen to them without the visuals, so that I could, because now that I know everyone's voices and know everyone's nuances, I'm able to really pick up something different when listening to shows, those movies that I hadn't had the opportunity to listen to or watch very deep before. Even the same with like Star Wars. I would love to be caught up for the new movie coming out in December, but I didn't have, the 1985, 1980s, 1990s, 2000s movies available. I just don't have them. I know people who do, but I also know people who are protected by DVDs, and I would probably want to hang out at their house to watch these lengthy movies. So, having the option to listen to or watch these movies before the middle of December when the new one comes out is a really cool thing to be able to do, and to ask questions in real time as well. You can pause, and even though, I'd have to go back to the movie and find it at this point because there's no continue watching section, I can still stop it and then message a friend and be like, okay, explain to me who's flying this particular X-Wing at this particular time. And, you know, us fanatics, if you've got the right question, they've got the answer. So,
and we've got a long answer for you.
Yes, exactly. So, and you know, we're excited to share too. Like it's not even like burden buddy, but for trying to understand something like that, it's really cool to be able to stop it and to not be encumbered by the inability to stop it and to go back to it. Like normally you watch a movie and you watch it and then you got all your questions floating around in your head. But this gives you the option to stop and think about what I just watched or also ask questions about things I didn't understand. So that's really a really cool thing for me because I like to get as much as I can and I don't usually. So, and even, you know, there's movies I watched 12 years ago, 20 years ago. I am things differently now than I did back then. So all of these nostalgia movies and the Disney movies that we're so excited about seeing, there's Tailspin and DuckTales and Darkwing Duck and all of these things that I came home and watched right after school. All of those are really fantastic for us, but I understand things so differently now than I used to, that it's like watching something for the first time, even though I know I've seen it already.
Yeah. And one of the really cool things that I liked about the Disney Channel, once we finally did get TV, and one of the few channels I was allowed to really watch was the Disney Channel. But one of the really cool things about it was that they would have these original movies on there called Disney Channel Originals. And, you know, like, I mean, I would just, you know, watch them because, I mean, obviously it was available and I would watch it and I'm like, oh, cool stories. But, like, looking back on it, it was a really awesome thing that they were doing because all of these stories were very unique and original. And I mean, I know that I've been harping lately on like remakes and Hollywood not doing anything original. Disney was doing these original stories. They were doing unique things. And I mean, a lot of them were kind of zany and out there and some of them were just kind of weird. But I mean, it was different and they were doing it and it was great. I really loved it and enjoyed it. You know, it exposed a whole generation of kids to all of these unique stories that, I mean, I hope stuck with some of us. I mean, one of my favorite ones was Smart House with Katie Seagal. And I still will think about that movie today. And it's just a really, I just really loved that they would expose kids to original content, not just the same, you know, rehashed, remake, reboot, whatever thing that they're pushing, you know.
Well, and you know, I think about the real original movies like, Xenon. Do you remember?
Yes, that was one of my favorite ones too.
Or, and just like all of those storylines they were different in some way, but they had that Disney happy, fuzzy plot point in them. There was something especially Disney about it near the end, like be yourself. There was always that mole that made it all warm and fuzzy Disney in the end. Every single one of them, but in a unique, different way. There was that 13th year one with the boy who turned mermaid. Yes. And
all the Halloween Town ones. Disney,
yes. Oh my goodness. Oh, with Marnie.
Yes. I fell in love with Kimberly J. Brown through those movies. That one, those ones, and Quince. I just fell in love with her as an actress.
Yeah. Well, and you know, what's funny is I just like think about the people who were like the Disney golden boys and golden girls, and they were completely different when we were growing up. But it's still the same now. They're, you know, with Descendants, Aurelia's watching Descendants and she's loving it. And there were a couple of shows that were in her kitchen on Netflix that she loved to watch that had the same actress in it. And I know it's some Disney golden girl. Aurelia knows her real name. And 5-10 years ago, they had Disney golden children then too that are probably in college now. And so we don't see them anymore. But
hopefully,
I always just think it's so, it sort of like brings you into their lives and makes you part of this Disney conglomerate, for lack of a better word. It was just something that we grew up with and hasn't changed, and it's like the one thing you can count on. One of the things you can count on for Disney, to really like still have that heartwarming feeling, even though you're still watching the same actors and you're still watching the same kind of thing, but with a completely different twist on it each and every time.
Yep. Yep. That was one of the things that just appealed to me because, you know, you had this huge variety of stories that were being told. And even if, you know, some of the actors and actresses were recurring, like, you know, they were still usually at least good enough to where you could just watch them in that role and not like be just totally distracted by the fact that they were standing there, you know?
Right. Okay, so I'm going to do Geek on Fleek.
Alrighty.
And then if you've got anything else you wanted to wrap up with Disney Plus. Sure. Okay, so for Geek on Fleek, I wanted to talk about specifically spoiler alerts and the right way to do that. As far as like Imgur and Reddit, Facebook memes. Specifically this week, there's been an awful lot of Mandalorian spoilers. And I wasn't personally offended in any way, shape, or form, but there is what seems to be a baby Yoda picture that's been floating around Facebook. And if you haven't seen it, then good for you. You're probably living under a hole. But there's been a lot of like just memes that people created, pictures, posts that may or may not have given away cute stuff that could have been saved for a week after Disney Plus started, so that some people who wanted to watch Mandalorian could have and not had the spoiler of Baby Yoda. Now, I don't know exactly what all those spoilers are. I have thankfully been able to avoid most things, except I do know the picture, I do know the meme, because I've seen it and thought nothing of it. But wanted to talk about like the 10 rules to go by to avoid spoilers. So like spoiler etiquette. Rules to follow to not be one of those people. Number 1, tag or scream or shout or text or whatever that you have a spoiler alert. We've done that in the show several times where we said, look, stop listening. This whole episode spoiler alert. Knock it off. Go away. And you can do that in your posts, in your threads, in whatever you're tweeting, posting, talking about. I don't know why people don't. But I guess you also can get really excited about things you're talking about. So maybe it's easier than I pretend it is. Number 2, saying that it happened in the book is not an excuse to spoil a show. That makes sense because so many times the television shows and the books have strayed from each other. And sometimes, like, God forbid, people don't read the book before they watch the show.
Yeah.
Or don't have the time to do that. Like, we've had an episode where we talked about that. Some of us want to watch the show before we read the book because we don't want to do all the work. I don't even know. I can't remember how we justified that.
Wasn't it Game of Thrones where we're like, you know, we'd like to make sure that the series actually finishes and ends before we start and get invested in this, you know?
Right, exactly. Well, and that's the one where the first season went so closely to the first book that I couldn't get through the first 100 pages of the book because it was like doing the same thing over again. And I love deja vu, but not really.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3 is the cardinal rule. Wait 1 full week after the airing of an episode to freely discuss it in public. Yeah, right? That one makes sense too, because you're supposed to give people a week at least. I think with movies, we usually give people a month. But a week is good. 4, always ask someone if they've already seen a show or an episode before starting a conversation about it. Again, when you're excited about what you want to talk about with someone and you know that they're into the show or into the fandom, it's hard to do that.
Mm-hmm.
You can always, number 5, discuss a plot point in public by whispering. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of weird to be whispering in public, but hey, telling secrets about fandoms and hand cannons and all that good stuff sounds...
Yeah. It's important
Number
business.
6, use your headphones if watching a show on your phone in a public place. Yeah, I mean, put your headphones in all the time. If you're going to be talking to people on the phone, just don't have it on speaker.
I mean, I feel like that's good etiquette no matter what, because...
No matter what you're doing.
Exactly. You know, it's... Especially because I was taking the bus when I was working in the Twin Cities, and anytime someone would come on and they would be blasting music or watching something, and I don't care what they were watching or what they were listening to, even if it was something I personally enjoyed, I would immediately just hate it. And it's like, just put on your headphones.
I don't want to
Headphones
listen to that right
are cheap. You know, headphones are pretty cheap. You can pick one up, you know, a dime a dozen at a convenience store. Just pick them up and use them.
Number 7, be extra careful in group chats. I don't know, people still have group chats?
Sometimes.
Number 8, quoting a show is equal to spoiling a show. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
I mean, basically a quote could be anything from a plot point to... even if you don't know who said it, it's definitely something you don't want to do. I like to quote philosophical stuff and things that like have nothing to do with how the show is going. But even then, it's never been. I don't want to, make promises I can't keep. But I don't think it's ever been a spoiler. Usually, I'm all about stuff that's been out for before I start watching.
Yeah. Me too.
Here's the reason why I wanted to do this for Geek on Fleek. Number 9, posting memes is also equal to spoiling a show. It's a spoiler.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Spoiler's a spoiler.
10, if a victim of the spoiler crisis, don't cry about it and spoil it for everyone else. Because then you're just part of the problem and not part of the solution.
Yeah.
And yeah, the last one is just like a reiteration of the 1 week, the 1 week rule. You get one spoiler-free week after the airing of an episode. After that, all these rules no longer apply.
Yeah.
The thing about The Mandalorian is that the show came out when Disney Plus launched on November 12th, and the second show came out at the end of last week. So the 12th, and then, gosh, I want to say the 17th or something. So now we're looking at another episode came out, and people were posting on Facebook already, oh, just watch the last episode of Mandalorian. And it was totally adorable. And I was like, what? Mandalorian? How could Mandalorian be adorable? This was my public service announcement for spoiler-free Edge on Geek on Fleek.
Yep, and I think it's...
What else do we have for Disney Plus?
All right, I have just a couple of little things that I wanted to discuss, because, I mean, obviously we all know that, like, you know, they're bringing in Marvel stuff and MCU. For right now, they're not bringing in the Spider-Man movies because of the whole distribution thing with Sony. It gets kind of weird, so they can't actually post the Spider-Man movies on Disney Plus, even though they made them. Because Sony has those distribution rights. So I don't know if maybe in the future they'll get them and put them on Disney Plus. I don't know. But I know that Spider-Man isn't on them right now. But they, I mean, obviously they have...
Incredible Hulk is either.
Yeah, because I think that was a different one as well.
Yep.
As far as I know. But... I mean, obviously you have, like, the main bulk of the Marvel movies, you know, like, most of the Marvel movies. I mean, you can watch them, and you're, you know, you won't get lost or anything. You're not, like, missing out on big plot points or anything like that. But the really cool thing that I thought that they did was that they have this huge library of animated Marvel shows, which animated Marvel stuff can sometimes be not so good. It's not usually as solid as, like, say, DC animated stuff is known to be, but there are a couple of really good shows in here that I wanted to just point out really quickly if anybody's interested in looking into some animated Marvel shows. Obviously, the X-Men series from 1992, I will always, always, always highly recommend that series. It is, to me, right up there with Batman the Animated Series. It is an absolute classic. They cover a couple of really good story arcs, including the Phoenix Saga arc. They do include that in their series, and it is done fantastically. They also, and one of my favorite ones is they actually did, like, Days of Future Past and Apocalypse in that series. So, yeah, I mean, they cover, like, a really, broad area of comic arcs. And I mean, honestly, they knocked it out of the park way better than any of them live action movies did. Like, hands down. Like, none of them can even measure up to this. And then the second one that I wanted to point out was Avengers Assemble. I know I've mentioned this a couple of times on the show already, but they honestly have done MCU arcs better than the MCU movies. And I mean, I know that there's just, disparity between, like, an animated and a live action, but to me, it's not just, necessarily the limitation of what can be done in animation and what can be done in live action. It's the writing. It's the core of the story. If the core of the story isn't so good, if it's weaker, then you're not going to have a good product no matter what. You can have the best actors, the best visual effects, but if your story is weak, you're not going to have a good product ultimately. So to me, and the writing is always most important. And the writing in Avengers Assemble is top notch. I absolutely love it. It's the best. If you ever want to watch or listen to a series that kind of is like the MCU, but is a little bit different and a lot better, Avengers Assemble is your series. So those are my recommendations for the animated Marvel shows that they have out there. And with that, we wanted to know, did you guys get Disney Plus? And if so, what are some of the things that you've been watching? Are you watching The Mandalorian? Are you watching some of the old originals or even some of the old live action movies that they have on there? So what is your preference to watch? Make sure you get in touch with us on our social media pages. We have on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. And just make sure you get in touch with us and let us know. I'm Elisabeth.
And I'm Lindsay. And thanks for getting nerdy with us today on Beauties and Headbands.